All right, I'm recording now. So I was going to show you what you should end up with, and I must have closed the wrong file because this isn't it. So what you'll end up with after your homework, we're going to do part of what you'll see here in this Zoom session, and then the rest of it, some of the more fancier bits, you're going to do as homework. They're not as hard as you'd think, and I'll point you in the right direction. I do want you guys to like try some things out and kind of fly on your own a little bit, because so far most of what we've been doing has all been like just following along with me, and I think it's time to push you guys out of the nest a little bit. All right, so right now this is what I have. Oh boy, part of this isn't working. Darn it. That should be showing the bank and stuff. I'll fix that in a minute. But I want you guys to add these buttons that have like a play and a quit. And when you hit quit, you can see it backed up the camera away from the slot machine, and it made the money, add money buttons over here disappear. When I hit play, it puts those back and it zooms back into the camera ready to play. And yeah, and then this is just not, it's kind of buggy when system resources are low, like when I'm screen recording and streaming at the same time. Things tend to not work quite as well, but it works fine when I'm just playing it by myself. There we go. So there's, you should have the bank system up here, and we moved the graphic down to the bottom here, right? And there's some sounds. Let's see. No, we're going to do the sounds here in this thing here in a second. So what we're going to do today, we're going to put in these buttons that add money to the your bank. So if there's no money in the bank, and also put in the logic where if there's no money in the bank, the game won't play, and it will display on the screen, please add money. And so these buttons will add that money to the bank. We are going to add these sound effects here, which is that spin sound. This spin sound, this end spin sound.
I think I already added that.
Huh? If you did week 8, you probably already edited that. I added that. I don't think I had that in the on the asynchronous lesson.
Also, something funny is happening to my project. It was working completely fine yesterday or 2 days ago when I was working on it. And now I open it up and I try to go to viewer active and press and whenever I toggle over the button area, it moves my wheels start to move. And when I try to press it, they just move a little bit and they stop spinning. It's as though whenever I move over the toggle.
So make sure that your play button is pressed in your patch, because if your play button isn't pressed, then they're not going to spin correctly.
What play button? What is that?
So you see my screen right now?
Yeah.
Down here, this play button needs to be set on play.
It needs to be set on play.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got it.
All right, cool. Yeah, I've run into that problem before, and I'm like, what's going on? So also make sure you mute your.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry.
So then, yeah, we're gonna add these sounds, like this coin sound, this end spin sound, and this spin sound here. All right, so that's something we're going to do today. Like I said, we're also going to put in a system that won't let you play when you don't have any money. And that displays on the screen. Why can't I see my text in my render? Hold on, let me try to fix this really quick. Maybe if I just delete my render and then undo, delete this and undo. I'm surprised I don't see that because I really should see that here in my render window, and for whatever reason, I don't see it. Doesn't matter really on this version. Yeah, for whatever reason, this isn't working. But this is that bank window that you should see up on your up here in the slot machine. For some reason, mine's not rendering correctly, even though I have everything and this was working fine the last time I did it. Do I have to hit the display button? You can see there in cam 1 it's showing up. Yeah, that's really weird. Okay, whatever. But when there's nothing in the bank, we're also going to add this feature where, let me go ahead and clear out my current count and my bank to 0. We add this feature where that will add this to the screen where it says, please add money. And also when you have no money, clicking the handle doesn't do anything, right? And if you could see the screen here, it would say, please add money, which would explain why you can't click it, right? And then as soon as but for whatever reason, mine's not working right now. But I think when we rebuild it here in a minute on the other version, hopefully it'll be working fine. But then you can add money to your bank, and then it'll work again, right? Yeah, so let me, come on, stop. This takes too long. I should adjust how long this wheel spins. All right, so then there you can see how the sounds will be triggered. All right, so your homework will be to add this system of play button and quit button that moves the camera and stuff. And like I said, I'll give you some hints on how to do that. So let me open the other version where I don't have this done already, and that would have been week 10 async lesson. Let me close this one. Which one's which? It's probably this one. Just quit, don't save.
Just a brief question on the
Yeah.
text box that's connected to your slot machine or your render or the out or something. My text box is obviously, well, it works, but it's not like routed to anything. It seems like I didn't do a chop execute. I may have just like referenced it or something.
Which,
but I think it still works. The text box that's right above.
The one that says bank?
Yeah, bank.
Yeah,
bank,
mine's
yes.
not attached to anything either because it's in a geometry component, right?
Oh, yeah,
So
wait, yeah.
are you not seeing it in your render?
No, I know I'm seeing it actually in the
Yeah.
render. Sorry, the question's actually my text box. It's called text one, but it's actually
Is it a text
it's a
top?
text box that has the complex, yeah. Yeah, it has the complex payout system. It's actually a DAT, I'm sorry. It's a text DAT.
Oh, a text DAT.
Yeah, with the complex payout system that you posted online.
Oh, from that must have been from like week 8 or something. Uh,
Right.
if it's a text DAT, then that doesn't do anything. That's just like
Oh,
that's for I don't know what I can't remember what I had that there for. I feel like I had that
yeah,
for establishing what each thing pays,
I see.
and it's just text. It's like you can use text
Yeah.
DAT to make comments in your
Oh,
thing. So if I put a text here, um, and I wanted to say, let's see, text. There it is. I could use this text DAT to say this is where the payouts are calculated. That's really the only way to put like comments in Touch Designer as an object, right? So if you wanted to like put this text here to to talk about what an object is that this is sitting right next to, that's the way to do it. Another way you can do if you're going to comment on something that has code like this complex payout system, uh, chop execute, you can always put a Python comment in here too, which uses a pound symbol or a hashtag symbol. So I can say this is a comment, right? And so you can comment your code that way as well, which is a really helpful thing to do, if especially if you're going through um, if you're going through a complex thing. All right, so yeah, so that's probably what you were looking at. Was I think in week 8 last year, I had posted or I had a text box with what I wanted each condition to pay and what those conditions were, and then
yeah.
I think I assigned as homework that year for for the students to actually write the code that would make those conditions. I didn't do that this year for homework. I just gave you that code. So that's probably where the discrepancy came in. But yeah, this text doesn't do anything. You can make it do things. You can use it to hold text and then populate that, or like I can reference using a text top. I can reference this DAT as the text that will be displayed in the text top. Like that's a possible use of this, but a lot of times people just use them as little comments in their code. Okay, so let's see. One thing I wanted to do while we're here, before we get into the sound, is I just found that that the payout system, you just don't win like ever, like hardly ever. And I wanted to make it a little bit more playable so that you win a little more often. So I wanted to add one more condition that gives you another level 1 payout. So if you guys would go ahead and copy all of the level 1 payout here, this elif wheel 1, wheel 2 equals 1, or wheel 1 equals wheel 3 equals 1, whatever. All of this stuff, copy that, put a new line in, go back 1 tab and paste it, and then change grab the actual conditions here and delete it. So it just says, what happened here? There we go. Elif, and then it's blank. And we're just going to say if any wheel equals the bar symbol, then do a level 1 payout. So I'm going to say wheel 1 equals 0, or wheel 2, all one word, equals 0, or wheel 3 equals 0, and then make sure you put a colon. Then that will also give you 3 coins, and that I found makes the game way more playable. You tend to win almost 50% of the time, if not more. So I don't know if like that would make it a viable game in Vegas, but it certainly makes it a more fun game to play and you engage with it for longer. Because the way it's been working now, like you'll do 50 spins and never win, which is you know no one's gonna if someone loses 10 times in a row, they're not gonna play the game, and they won't be interested in playing it again after that. So this tends to make you win more often. Okay, so we got that in there. Now the next thing is let's go ahead and add these sounds. So
Jackson, I have a question.
yes, question.
When you just did um the one we were in, like when you said when we'll oh it equals to zero, but how does is my what if my bar is not zero?
So
Like
that reminds me. Yes. So I noticed that myself. That it's just a visual thing. It doesn't actually affect the game. But like here, so if you did the asynchronous lesson, we did these constant 1, 2, and 3, and we attached those to the wheel position so that we could override what the spinners were doing. And if you set these all to 7, with the things that we had, which I believe was like negative 35 or something on this thing here, it was like, or negative, it was like, no, plus 30, plus 35, I think.
I have minus 36 plus 38,
Plus
but
38.
I think my position is a little different for starting from the beginning. Like
Right. So these 7, it should be a 7 there, and for whatever reason, it's coming up as a bell. And if I wanted this to be a bar and I wanted it to be 0, if I set this to 0, mine was showing a cherry. So maybe I don't remember what it was before, but I ended up fixing that. And basically, what I did is I just adjusted this until. Oh, and it is a cherry. It's just that the what's in the middle of the screen isn't what is showed in the middle of the slot machine. See, because of the tilt of this thing. So like what we had there was a cherry, and it should have been a bar. Uh, and what I found actually worked a lot better is if I just adjusted this formula on each of the wheels geometry component. You know, we can adjust that rotational offset. And I found if you do plus 90, then it's pretty much a centered bar where it is. So the formula should be wheel post 1, channel 0 times negative 36 plus 90. And you do that on each one. So this times negative 36 plus 90 times negative 36 plus 90. So that's a little bit different than I did before. I don't know where I got 38 the last time I did it, but this is basically what it should be. And I didn't notice that until uh, I was doing that online asynchronous lesson that these are off. So like if I set these to 0, we should have 3 bars here, right? Okay. So, and if you still have your constants hooked up like this, let's go ahead and hook your spinners back up to these instead.
Yeah, I got rid of the constants already, I think.
Yeah. So if you haven't hooked, you want them hooked up to the spinners. Only use those constants for testing purposes. Otherwise, you'll win every single time. Okay. So yeah, what we did in the asynchronous lesson caused, I believe we subtract from the bank, although I don't see it. No, we haven't done that yet. It's just keeping track of whether you've won anything. Okay, cool. So yeah, we're gonna add that. All right, so let's go ahead first of all and add the sounds to this. So the sounds are in that week 8. If you haven't downloaded them already, they're in the week 8 site on Touch Designer. So week 8. If you download slot machine content and you unzip it. So here's my, I'm going to, this is, I've already downloaded this like 10 times, but here's what's inside that thing. You know, it's all these symbols, individual symbols. We don't need those individual symbols. That was like from an earlier version, but what we do want is this coin win, the end spin, and the spin.wave. So just the 3 wave files, grab those and drag them into your Touch Designer. And they'll sit right on top of each other, so it'll only look like one file, but if you move it, you'll see that there are 3 there. It's probably best to put the spin on top, the end spin under that, and the coin win under that. And basically all sounds in Touch Designer are dealt with chops. So you see, you know, because an audio signal is basically the same as a fluctuating number stream, at least once you digitize it. And so it's treated as a chop. So you see these waveforms here. You don't hear anything until you hook it up to an audio device in chop, or a audio device out, rather, audio device out chop. But before you hook it up, these sounds are kind of loud. So I'm going to, for now, I'm going to set the volume on this audio device out to like 0.1 so that it's really quiet. And I'm going to patch this in, and you can hear that thing make noise. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off on the parameters for this file called spin. If I click the play to off, it'll stop playing. Now go ahead and copy this audio device out and paste it again. And instead of having all 3 of these connected to spin, let's connect this middle one to end spin and turn it off. And connect this last coin win, which is the sound of coins falling. Set that to off as well, so that the thing is quiet finally. All right. So some of these we're going to have loop, and some of them we're going to just play as one-offs. The end spin we're going to play as a one-off. So there's a thing on here called repeat on. Turn that to off. That's repeat. There we go. Repeat. Turn that to off. Then if I hit the play on, it'll only play once. Or it won't even play until I hit this pulse on the cue. And then it'll play. Right? The coin win, we are going to, when it plays, it'll loop until the coins stop counting up. And then when they stop, it'll stop, right? And the spin will loop until the wheels stop, and then we'll send a command to stop that sound, right? So one thing I notice on the coins is that the loop there's kind of a gap you hear there, right? So we can edit that to take out that gap, and there's a function called trim here. And if you turn on trim and you set the end trim to like 3 seconds, it does a pretty good job of looping that without the gap. It's not perfect, and Amy can probably hear a small seam, but for the average person, you wouldn't be able to hear that. You could, of course, take the file into Pro Tools or Reaper or Audacity and make a better loop with that and not have to trim it. But this works pretty well. Okay, so now we got our sounds, and we just have to figure out a method of triggering those. So what we can do is, I'm going to turn off my viewer active on this button, and I'm going to move it out of the way. What we can do is, what can we do? We can create a chop execute to start this spin sound. So coming out of this button, I want to send that signal into a null chop to actually, whoops, I clicked on, oh no, I clicked on the wrong thing. Null, there we go. So that I have somewhere to hold this number that comes out of the button. And then I'm going to pass that into the delay and into the spinner one. Right, so it still works the same way, where that will cause everything to start spinning. You can see they're spinning, except for wheel post 2 is not working right because of the little bug that I still haven't quite figured out how to squash yet. Right, but we can use this number coming out of this null to drive our chop execute. So create a chop execute. And actually we can, actually the easiest way to do it is to right click on the output of the null here and then choose your chop execute. And then it'll automatically make this reference here. The other way to do it is to create your chop execute and type in this reference, null 1, right? This is called null 1, and the chop it's looking at is null 1, right? And so in this chop execute, we're going to use our from off to on code, right? Where it says def on off to on. We also need to make sure we turn that on here in our parameters for the chop execute. We want to turn off the value change because we're not going to be using that function. We're going to use on off to on. And now we need to add some code in here. So you make your viewer active, put a new line in, make sure you have to tab over if you want it to work. And we're going to put in some code in here. And the first thing we want to do is we want to play the spin sound. And yeah, let's just do that first. So we have to reference this spin sound, which is called, you can see that the operator is called spin with a capital S. They're not the best named files because they don't work with the convention of having a lowercase letter, but we should be able to fly with it anyway. So op, open parentheses, single quote, capital S spin, single quote, close parentheses. Now we have to actually dot par. We're going to affect the parameters of this. Dot par dot, and now what parameter do we have to affect to get this to play? Well, if I click on the spin and I look at its parameters, we want this here to flip from the play function to flip from off to on. And if we hit this plus over here to get the drop down, we can see that that parameter is called play, all lowercase. So if I say par dot play equals 1, that should, when I hit the button, set that sound to playing. So I hit the button, the sound starts playing. It's going to keep playing forever at this point because we don't have a function to stop it. Let me go ahead and stop it manually for now. But what we want to do is stop that when the last wheel stops playing, stops spinning. And we already have a chop execute attached to that last wheel and it's our complex payout system attached. Well, it's actually attached to this spin complete that gets, I don't remember what sets, but when the last wheel stops spinning, this spin complete gets, I think it's somewhere in the spinner 3. There's code to flip this to 1, so we can use that here to stop that sound from playing. So we have all these if statements. Before the if statement, we can stop our spin sound. So let me put in a new line, and I'm going to put in a comment here, and I'm going to say stop spin sound, right? So you can use a hashtag or a pound symbol to add comments to your code. And now we just reference that play parameter of the spin, of the operator called spin, which is a audio file chop. So it's op, open parentheses, single quote, spin with a capital S, close parentheses, dot par dot play equals 0. And that should stop it from spin.
On my complex payout system,
Mm-hmm.
the way that it was done for me, it's the hashtag is on line 16. It says play end spin sound, and then it's op end spin end underscore spin bar reload pulse dot
Yeah,
pulse.
so that is reloading the sound. End spin reload pulse, right. So yeah, I'll get into that. I just I wanted to do things one thing at a time for the.
I see.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's how we can turn that on and off. And so now if we tried this out.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No problem. So yeah, I will add. We're going to add that code. I just haven't gotten there yet. You're ahead of the game because you did that week 8 thing. All right. So now when I click the button, you should get the spin sound. And when the wheels stop spinning, hey, look at that! I won. The sound stops. I can't believe I actually won. It's a miracle. All right. So that's great. Now the next thing we wanted to do is play that end spin sound, and that's a one-off. So we want it to play this sound, and the way you can play that is so I did reload pulse before. Reload. That's one way of doing it. Does Q work? Either one works. So I think last year I did reload pulse, and that'll play it. I think in my prep that I did today, I think I did the Q pulse. Either one of these will work. But we basically want that to play, and the way you do that is by sending a pulse function to the reload pulse parameter or the Q pulse parameter, either one. So here in the complex payout system, we're going to say op. What was it called? End spin, capital, single quote, capital E N D underscore. God, these file names are terrible. I'm sorry. Capital S P I N, single quote, close parentheses, dot par dot reload pulse. So you'd think you'd be able to like send a 1 to reload pulse and that would work, but it doesn't work that way. Anything that has a button here in your parameters, the way to actually click that button with code is to send it a function called pulse, open close parentheses, which is a a way of describing what's called a void function. So here on par.reload pulse, I can say dot pulse, open close parentheses, and that will pulse that reload pulse, and basically, essentially, that clicks this button for you, right? So if I put that in there now, it should play the end spin sound. So let's try that. Right? So there we go. So one thing also, just to kind of show off some of the parameters, on this spin, you can also change the speed of things. And let me just go ahead and manually turn this on play. I liked this turned down to like 0.76. I thought it sounded better. It sounded slower and kind of matched the speed of the wheels a little bit better, and not quite as annoying. So you can set the speed of this, and that'll affect the pitch as well. All right, so I set the pitch down to 0.7, or sorry, the speed down to 0.76, but that's optional. You don't have to do that. I just thought it sounded better. All right, so then let's see. That's part of it. The next thing we need to do is take money out of the bank when you spin the wheel. So first of all, we don't want our bank to get into negative numbers. So we're going to create, actually, let's do it before this pulse spin thing. And this is a little bit different from the last year's week 8, which I actually made an error in. So I fixed it since then. And this is, so if you have code in Chop Exec already for this, you're going to want to edit it to conform with what I'm about to show you. And that is, we want to have an if statement where we don't do anything inside the if statement if the conditions aren't met. And so the first thing we want to do is we want to define what the bank is so that we don't have to keep typing out, we don't have to keep typing out, op bank channel chan1 100 times to get this, so that we can just reference the word bank. So we can say bank equals, so we're creating a variable here, and we're going to say this bank equals op, open parentheses, single quote, bank, single quote, close parentheses, open bracket, single quote, chan1, single quote, close bracket, square bracket. That will reference the chan1 channel of the bank chop, which is where we're storing our current number of winnings. That was in the we set that up in the asynchronous lesson. Yeah, so now we're going to say on this def off, on off to on, we're going to add an if statement. We're going to say if bank is greater than 0, colon, then everything on the next line has to be tabbed over 1. Okay? Otherwise, it won't work. Remember, because Python is white space dependent. So if there's nothing in the bank, it's not going to play this spin sound, and it won't subtract anything from the bank, because it just won't do anything inside this if statement. But if the bank is greater than 0, then we're going to play the spin sound. We're also going to set, sorry, I can't see my notes, they're too small. We are going to set the bank the money in the bank to be what's currently in the bank minus 1. And so in other words, we're going to subtract $1 from the bank. So we're going to say op bank, single quotes, op, single quote, bank, single quote, close parentheses, dot par dot value 0 equals bank minus 1. Okay, you're like, well, you're referencing op bank up here on this variable called bank. Why can't I just say bank equals bank minus 1? And that's the way, in my opinion, it should work. But Vectorworks, Touch Designer has a weird behavior where you can, if you're referencing a channel, which is something in square brackets like this, you can only get the value from there. You can't set that value. I can't reference this and change the value that's in Chan 1. I can only do that by going to par value 0 and setting it there. And also, I can't read the value from par value 0. I can only read it from the channel. So I could make a whole other reference up here, but I didn't, and I don't want to start now because I don't want to encounter any errors that I hadn't planned on. So if I'm setting a value, in this case, we're setting it to whatever currently is in the bank that we're reading from this up here, minus 1. Okay? We also have that other thing called cur count. We want to set that to be the same as the bank. So op, so that it subtracts from cur count as well. Bank, no, it's not bank, sorry, cur count, single quote, close parentheses, dot par, dot value 0 equals, and we can just set it, we went ahead and set the bank value to be bank minus 1, so we can just say equals bank now, because it'll execute this instruction first, and then it will do, so that'll subtract from 1 from it, and then we can set that value that we've subtracted 1 from as the cur count value. So that will make both of them go down by 1. Okay? So now this will, every time we hit the button, will subtract from the bank. So you can see I have 1,060. If I hit the button, I have 1,059 now. And it goes ahead and plays the sound because I have money in the bank. So, and I got a bar, so it added some money to it. All right, so now, just to show you guys, if I go over here to where's my bank and my cur count? If I set these down to 0, my bank here, I'm going to wipe out everything in the bank. My cur count, I'm going to wipe out everything in cur count. And now, if I activate this, it will still spin the wheels right now, but we're about to fix that. But it won't play any sound, and it won't subtract anything from the bank. Right? And I think it'll still play that end spin sound because that's not controlled by this system. Yeah. Okay. So that's the next thing we want to do. We want to actually create a system that won't let you play if you don't have any money. So right now, this is all getting controlled. Everything's getting set into motion by the number coming directly out of the button. And we want to change that. Instead of, what we're going to do is use this chop exec to set a constant to 0 or 1. And if there's no money in the bank, it won't do that, right? So this is something that I didn't do because I think it was like homework last year when I taught this. So if you're working off of code from week 8, this is something you're going to want to add. So here on chop, we're going to add a constant. No, not composite. Constant. There we go. And we're going to replace this going into spinner 1 with this constant and replace the going into this delay 1, right, like that. So this can still spin the wheels if you slide the value in Chan 1 from 0 to 1. The wheels will still spin the way they should, except for this one's not working right. But there it goes. So we've basically now taken that away. So we want to set that back to 0. We've disconnected the button directly from the wheels because we need to analyze whether we have any money in the bank. And if we do, then we can go ahead and make this thing go. In fact, this constant, let's just name it go. So that's now called go. This constant chop that we just added, it's called go. And so now down here, I can say if the bank is greater than 0, so if you have money in the bank, let's add a line at the top of those conditions and say op, open parentheses, single quote, go, single quote, close parentheses, dot par dot value 0 equals 1. So that'll actually set it to go, right? And we also want to then, we also want to set that back to 0. So basically this button here, the one that's attached to the slot handle, it's a momentary button, right? So it's type here should be set on momentary. So when you let go of that, it'll send a 0. And so we want to actually use that 0 to set this go back to 0 so that it basically will send the same kind of signals you were getting before. Otherwise, it won't activate this chop, it won't activate the wheels because they're looking for state changes between 0 and 1. So if you set it to 1 and you don't set it back, you can set it to 1, but none of those wheels they won't notice that anything has happened. There will be no off to on. It has to be off first to go to on, right? So we need to set it back to off. We can't just leave it on 1. So here on this def on to off, which is the opposite condition. So on mine, it's line 23. It says def on to off. Tab over. We just can set, when this goes from on back to off, we should set that go back to 0. So op, single quote, go, single quote, close parentheses, dot par dot value 0 equals 0 to set that back. Now you need to also make sure on this chop exec that you turn that function on. So right now we only have the on off to on turned on. We need to also turn on the on to off. So that way it does both of those. So now when I have, I have money in the bank. Let me go ahead and delete the money from my bank. Close. So that's over here. I have $3 in the bank. I have a cur count of 3. I change that back down to 0. So now this should not do anything when I hit the button. When I hit the button, nothing happens, right? Because it doesn't have any money in the bank. Now, if I put some money in the bank, I'll go ahead and set this to 1 and set cur count to 1. Now I have $1 in the bank. It should spin. And you see that went down to 0. Now I still have this bug where when my system resources get taxed, like when I'm streaming and recording at the same time, sometimes the wheels don't spin correctly. They all seem to spin eventually. They just take their time doing it. I'll see if there isn't some workaround, but like I said, that generally only happens when I'm screen recording. So yeah, so now, right now, we're kind of broken when we run out of money. When we're broke, we're really broke because we can't do anything. we need to add some buttons that'll add money to our bank. Oh, that's one other thing we want to do, and that's we have to set the coin sound. So here on the coin sound, you can add on the money counter, which is the code that is making the count up system work. We can use that to also turn on and off the coin sound. Let's see. So on value change on this, so money counter, here it is. On value change, we're going to, we have our cur count plus bank. We can put on a line under that. We can say op single quote, what is it? Coin win. I think these are all lowercase just to make it confusing. Dot par dot play equals 1, and that'll start that coin win sound playing. And then yeah, when the count equals the award here, which is where it stops the trigger, you can see here it says count trigger par play 0. We can actually just copy this line here and paste it in, and now change this from count trigger to coin win par play equals 0, and that'll stop that. That'll stop that sound from playing. So if we want to try that out, we can. It might be hard to get it to give us a win condition, so we might want to plug our constants back in. Momentarily. So that gives me 3 bars. Oh, but I don't have any in my bank, so it's not going to let me play. So I got to put something in the bank. And something in my cur count. All right. Now it will take as much time as it normally takes to spin the wheels, but the wheels aren't going to spin, but they should say, hey, you won because you have 3 bars. So the sound plays. And the wheels would be spinning if we didn't have them overridden right now. And then that sound plays. And how much money do you get? 200. And it stopped. See? So that's pretty much the nutshell of the sounds. I think in my notes I had some like sound resetting, but I don't want to even go into it. It's not that big a deal. So like there was some code to make this spin sound like reset back to the beginning, but like I don't care if it starts in the middle of the sound. It's such a short loop that you're not likely to even hear the difference. So I'm not even going to bother with that. So now we just need to, like I said, we need to add the money to this, right? So we need to add some, and let's go ahead, let's hook these back up. Get rid of my overrides, and I'm going to go ahead and empty out my bank account again. And empty out the current count down to 0. So now it won't let me play, right? Because I have nothing in the bank. So now we need to add some buttons here that will allow me to add money to the bank. So I'm going to add a button comp, And right off the bat, I want this to be this is a little low res for what I want. Look how bad that looks. I want to make this look a little bit better. So I'm going to, in the common, is it common? It's actually inside. So go inside the button. This background here, which is where we're going to set the text. We're going to, here under common, the resolution is set to 50 by 50. Let's change that to 100 by 100. Whoops. So right now it's set to parent width. Let's change that to a constant and change this to 100 by 100. Actually, you know what? The parent width and height should actually work. So just go over here on this width and height where it says 50 by 50, change that to 100 by 100. No, because I shrink it back down. Sorry. I want it to be higher resolution even when I shrink it to 50 by 50. So, well, actually, how big is it? Is that the size I wanted it? I can't remember. Yeah, no, I think I did like it better the other way. Okay, so sorry. So go inside your button here, and where it says resolution under the common tab on this BG text operator, by default, it does these references where it's saying, I want to set my resolution width and height to whatever the button's width and height is set to. We want to override that and just choose a constant here. And it'll want to go to 256 by 256. That's bigger than we need. Just make it 100 by 100 here. And then on your font, you can make the font size bigger, and that'll make it look a lot better. So something like 20, I think. And let's change the text here from button to $1. Okay. Scroll out, and here on the width and height, change this to 50 by 50, not 5, 50 by 50. And I don't know, it still doesn't look very good, but I think it looks better. See how much sharper it looks on this? Because we've made it higher resolution inside. All right, so now we want to, you know what it is it can be a high, let's change it can be bigger, it can be a bigger font size. Make the font size bigger. Yeah, that looks a lot better. I don't remember what I have it on. Something like that, something like 40, 38, that looks good. All right, so now we have $1. Let's just copy this and paste it again. And then we're going to go in and make one of these $5 and one of them $10. So in this, we're just going to change the text here from $1 to $5. And then in this one, I'm going to change the text here from $1 to $10. Hopefully it still fits. Yeah, good enough. All right. Now, let's attach a null chop to the output of each of these buttons. I just copied and pasted those nulls, and then I'm going to change its hookup to this so that we can see those values. So that will send we want to set the button type on each of these buttons to momentary instead of toggle down. So this one, button type momentary. This one, button type momentary. And then you can go ahead and turn these on, or make these viewer active so we can actually push them. So now you get a 1 or a 0 here, a 1 or a 0 here, and a 1 or a 0 here. Now we're going to merge all three of these channels into one chop using the merge chop. And make sure you attach these in order. The $1 you put into the merge first, the $5 you put in second, and the $10 you put in third. Otherwise, it'll change the order of these channels. So we want V1 to be, on this merge, is the $1, V2 to be the $5, and V3 to be the $10. Now we need it to actually spit out those values based on which button you pushed. Let me select these and move them over. Give ourselves some room. All right, so we're going to use an expression chop to do that. So attached to this merge, we can use an expression. And on this expression, we want number of expressions to be 3, because we want 3 different expressions. And each expression is going to multiply the input by either just leave it at 1, or multiply it by 5, or multiply it by 10. So there's 3 different expressions, so num expressions 3. Now if you go over to the expressions tab, you can see there are 3 expressions. And if I expand these, you can say you can see it says me.input value. So that's its channel 1 input. This is its channel 2 input, and its channel 3 input. And whatever that number is, it's just passing through. We can leave that alone for the first one. The second one, we want to multiply that by 5. And whoops, go back to expression. There we go. And then on the third one, we can multiply that by 10. And so now you can see those values. If I press, that sends a 1, this sends a 5, that sends a 10 out here, right? Now we can attach this to an chop exec. Chop exec dat, right? So you either right click on the output of expression and choose chop exec, which will make the reference for you, or you create a chop exec and you put express 1 as the chop that it's looking at, or whatever.
How did you create multiple channels for the express?
So under this one thing where it says number expressions, you say 3. And you pass it in from the merge. The merge will automatically make it have 3 channels because the merge has 3 channels. Does that answer your question?
My merge is connected fully, but doesn't have 3 channels listed. Actually, it does.
It doesn't look
has,
like this?
Yeah, it does. It doesn't. Oh yeah, V1, V2, V3. Yeah, it has that. Never mind.
Okay,
I had to zoom in.
And the express has the same 3 things, right?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, great. Cool. So now we can use the numbers coming out of this, and we can turn on our off to on function and turn off the value change on this chop exec. And what we're going to do is we're first going to add together all of the channels coming out of this express 1. You know, I don't know that it's even possible for someone to hit both 2 buttons at once, but if they did, then we could give them $15 or $11 or $6. That's fine. But really, this just serves as an easy way of having one value that figures out which button we chose. So here under on off to on this chop exec, turn on your viewer active so you can add code. Add a line, tab in, and we're going to add together those 3 channels of that expression. And I'm going to use a variable just to make it easier later. I'm going to say we're going to define this thing called money. Money equals op, open parentheses, single quote, express 1. Is it 2 S's? I think it is, right? Yes, express 1, single quote, close parentheses, And now we have to reference those 3 channels. And remember, when you're referencing channels in a chop, you use brackets. So I could say V1 here, or I could say channel 0, 1, and 2. Let's actually try the 0, 1, and 2. So channel 0 is the first channel. And now I'm going to add the second channel to that. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it back in and change this to 1. So money equals everything in the first channel plus everything in the second channel plus everything in the third channel. So channels 0, 1, and 2 added together. That equals money. Okay? And then we're going to add that to the bank. And let's see here. I went ahead, above this, I defined my bank and my cur count up here. So let's go ahead and do that too, so we don't have to keep specifying it. So bank equals, we've already done this before, op, open parentheses, single quote, bank, single quote, close parentheses, open parentheses, chan1, not parentheses, open bracket, bracket, chan1, close bracket. So that will reference whatever's in the bank. Let's say cur count equals op, single quote, cur count, single quote, close parenthesis, open bracket, chan1, single quote, close bracket. So that defines those. And now we can say, after this, money equals op expression 1 channel 0 plus channel 1 plus channel 2. We can say we have to set the value in op cur count value 0. Yeah. Which we can't do with this reference. We have to use the par value 0. Op cur count, single quote, close parentheses, dot par dot value 0 equals, and we're just going to say money plus bank. Money plus bank. And then, so that will basically, it'll set the current count as whatever whatever is in the bank plus whatever money we added by pressing that bank. And then we just need to update the bank with that. So then we can say op, single quote, bank, single quote, close parenthesis, dot par dot value 0 equals cur count. See, we updated what cur count was, and now we are going to update the bank with cur count. Okay, and so that should add everything we need to that. Let's try it out. So right now there's nothing in the bank. Oh, I need to move my buttons. But I should be, if I hit this 10 down here, it should add 10 to the bank. And it doesn't. Yay, why? On to off, on off to on, off to on. Did I get an error? No, I didn't get an error. Well, let me move them first, and then we'll figure out what's going on. So let's move these buttons. Maybe they didn't work because they were all in the same area. So let's put them up here toward the top. So button here. Whoops, see, that worked. When I clicked it there, you can see a bank went to 1. When I click it here, it goes to 6. And when I click it here, it goes to 16. So they are working. They just don't work when they're stacked on top of each other over here. So let's fix that. So if I make these, turn off the viewer active on these buttons, and then move their position. So I go to like layout, yes. And let's move it over like 50 on the X. And there's the 1, and then move it up to, I don't know, something up high, something right around there. Let's say 600. Yeah. And then on this one here, layout X50, Y, what, 580? We'll try 580. Oh, no, not enough. 560? Nope. 540? Yeah, I like that. Okay. 540. And then this button, layout X50, Y, let's see, 500. Nope.
At some points, could you take us back to the Chop Exec 3 off of the Express? Because mine is not working and I need to adjust it. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So now these buttons should add money to the bank. And once you have money in the bank, you should be able to actually click your wheels. All right. So that's basically the whole shebang. Oh, no, there's one other thing we want to do. We want to add a text box that says, please add money when this gets down to 0. Are you good with that?
For some reason, my buttons are not adding any money. And my Chop Exec 3 is saying that it's failing, that there's an error even though it's identical to yours.
So what does your error say?
The error says, syntax error, EOL while scanning string, literal, warning cannot find function names on value change. Yeah.
So you have a typo somewhere. Yeah, let's see. Say it again. What does it say?
Yeah, syntax error, line 10, op, it's op, parentheses, cur count, chan 1. Oh, I see what I did.
Yeah.
I see what I did.
Woo!
We're good.
Okay, cool. So now we just need to, let's go ahead and clear out our bank again. So I'm going to go over to where my cur count and my bank are holding my values. I'm going to set those down to 0. So now we want a message to pop up in our text here that says, please add money. So if you go inside the text, we have our bank here. We have our text here. Let's actually copy this one that says bank, paste it. And I believe that this one probably, if you follow along with me, has a background alpha that's set. Let's turn that off so that it's clear. Otherwise, it's going to obscure anything that's underneath it. And set the text here, instead of the word bank, set the word please add money. And then change where the location is. So down here on position, let's set the position here to 0 on the X, and the Y, let's see, let's just use my value ladder and drag it down. Something lower, down toward the bottom. And then I guess I'm gonna have to change my font size a little bit to make it fit. Whoops, that's too small. Why does it seem like it's kind of like pushed to the right a little? I don't know. Let me see. Yeah, 12 looked good. 13 looks good. Yeah. So then if we put this in line here, you can see that that now says, please add money. Right? But we only want it to show up when there's nothing in the bank. So we could probably add a, a chop exec function to do that, but there's a way easier way to deal with it. And that's just simply, if you remember our Skype, our Zoom lesson last week, I showed you how you can use logic operators as values themselves. We can use that as a value here to make this be invisible when there's money in the bank. So if I open the parameters for this, and I say here under, where is it? Color, font alpha is set to 1. If I change this to a expression and I reference op, open parentheses. Now I have to go outside of this to find it. So to go outside of this, I can either give an absolute reference of / project 1 / and what I'm looking for. But I can also just, why didn't I have that in the picture? Oh well. I can also do a relative reference, which is .. And I can say .. and then I'm going to look at bank. Oh, this needs to be in quotes. Sorry. If you don't put it in quotes, it won't work. So sorry. Op, open parentheses, single quote, .. bank, single quote, close parenthesis, dot. No, not dot. Just channel, chan1, not can1. Actually, let's just put 0. Channel 0. And then we say that that's greater than, no, it says equals 0. So if it's 0, this will equal 1. If it's not 0, meaning there's money in the bank, this will equal 0, and it will be invisible. So when you do that, if you did it right, this should be blue and not red. And it should say, if you have no money in the bank right now, this will be 1. If you have money in the bank, this will be 0. Let's test that out. So now if I go out of here, and I open a viewer, as soon as I add something in the bank, that message goes away. As soon as I have nothing in the bank, it says, please add money. My wheels are acting up again, but they will spin eventually. They're just being weird. Oh, so close. And now nothing works. All right. So then the only other thing I did is I added a little like menu up here. And I just did that over here. I said, I put a little text op in between our render, a text top. I hit the wrong thing again. Text, and change this to add money, colon. And you can put this in line between your render and your output, which will put that right on the screen there. Add money, and then I just need to change its position. Where is that? Under here, under font, I guess. Yeah, font. All right, so I'm going to position. Let me do that value ladder. And I'm going to put it above where those buttons are. Like that. And so now you should see add money, right? All right, so that's pretty much the whole thing. And I just want to show you what your homework is now. What I want you to do is add a button, and I'll go ahead and make one real quick. And let's make this button really big. So layout size, let's make it 200 by 200. And in here, I'm going to change this text to like play, not pally, play, and make the font size a lot bigger. And I want you to color this, like play around in here. You can go and change the font color, the background color, and turn up the alpha and border colors. Like right now, these are all set by this stupid thing, but you can override those by changing them to constants, right? And then set these values here, or just click on the color you want. All right, and I could, on the background color, I could change this to, say, green. Ooh, that's terrible. Dark green, there we go, that's better. And then maybe my font color is something like an orange. Right, so I have this play, and then you can also choose like an interesting font. I'm not gonna do it right now, but something that looks nice. And what I want you to do is, this is gonna be sitting right in the, well, no it's not. By default it puts it down in the corner. But maybe we move it over to the middle of the screen. What did I just do? Oops, I made that way too far. Something like that. And when you click it, I want it to disappear and to make this button appear and make these buttons appear and make this add money appear. But when you, and then we're also going to have a quit button that does the opposite. And the way you can do that, and again, if this gets too hard for you, just send me an email or a text, and I can show you a little bit more and point you a little bit more in the right direction. But the way you can do that is here, under all of these buttons. If you go to look, is it look? Where is it? It's in here somewhere. There it is, panel. You go to panel. If you can affect this parameter called button, or whatever this name is, this is button 5, button 5.par.display equals 0, that button disappears, right? Display, and it stops working. Like, you won't be able to click on it either if it's not displayed. So button.par.display equals 1, the button is there, right? So make this button, after you click it, disappear by attaching first a null chop to this, right? And then from the null chop, you'll add a chop execute.dat set to off to on. You probably want this button to be a momentary button. Instead of a toggle down, make it a momentary. And then here you put your code for what you want that button to do. And you would put the, button.par.play, or no, sorry, display equals 0, and that will shut it off if you would actually put the name of the button instead of a bunch of random characters like I just did, right? So make this play button, make these other buttons appear, and then add another button that's like a quit button and put it down in the corner, and it makes the play button reappear and turns off all of these other buttons, right? And turns off the slot machine button. So let me show you. When you click this play button should disappear, and all of these buttons should show up. All of these buttons. When you push the quit button, which I put down here on my version, then the play button reappears and all of these buttons disappear. Okay? So that's the first thing. That's if you only do that, that's great. What you could try doing what I thought was really interesting is making the camera zoom in and out. So when you hit the quit, it backs the camera away from the slot machine. And when you hit the play, it zooms the camera into the slot machine. And there's a bunch of different ways you could do that. Take a look at the trigger op that we used it's in here somewhere. Like that's one thing you could do, but you don't have to. You could use the lag op going through a math chop doing some scaling. And basically you basically have a value that's either sliding from 0 to 1 or hopping from 0 to 1 and going through a lag to make it slide, or it goes through a trigger that makes a value slide from 0 to 1. You basically have a triggered value that slides from 0 to 1. And you pass that through a math chop that does some scaling, and that scaling is going to scale the camera's Z position from some distant position to the position that it's currently in here, right? So that would be something to try as well. Is there any questions on that? All right, I'm going to hop off of screen share. All right, so that's your homework. So make sure you email me your asynchronous lesson for next week. If you didn't do the asynchronous lesson this week, make sure you email me that. Catch up with the slot machine if you're behind. I'm going to give you guys some extra time on the slot machine because I know it was a stressful couple of weeks. But if you give me the slot machine in the next 2 weeks, I won't count it late. Just go through the recordings and catch up. And then also your homework is to add the play button and the quit button that makes all those other buttons disappear or appear. And then also, if you want to, it'd be great to have a camera motion that makes it zoom in or zoom out, okay? As I demonstrated before. And then please do send me your detailed final project proposal if you haven't already. All right, any questions before we go? All right, cool. We're right at time, so that's great. If I can stick around, if anybody has anything they want to discuss with me or any other questions you might have, I can stick around if anybody wants to. Anybody?
I have a quick question about my
Okay.
final
Everybody
project.
else, if you want to, you can go. Thank you. We'll see you next week.
See you.
Bye. What's up?
So I sent you my proposal, I think 2 weeks ago? I don't remember. But I was thinking about something that I want to do that
Here, let
maybe.
me actually wait for a second. Let me stop the recording first.
Okay.